President of the Security Council, and I would now like to give the floor to the distinguished representative of the Syrian Arab Republic.
شكرا سيدي الرئيس.
Thank you, President. At the outset, President, I should like to say that I have a feeling, which I'm sure is shared by other colleagues, that those who convened this meeting are trying to empty cooperation between the Syrian Arab Republic and the United Nations of all sense. This cooperation, as you know, has had a number of positive consequences and results over the years, the so-called crisis years in Syria. I heard a number of colleagues, particularly those who called for the holding of this meeting, saying that the Syrian government did not want to commit to any kind of cooperation with the United Nations. These observations are not underpinned by facts, the facts that you all know. First of all, we are one of the founding countries of the United Nations. We were elected 3 times to the Security Council. We are not, therefore, strangers to the importance of this international organization or your August Council. Secondly, we are committed to the Geneva discussions and have been so since the outset. We have held dozens of meetings with Kofi Annan and since then with Ahmed Brahimi and Staffan de Mistura. We have devoted thousands of hours of work to cooperation with these people in order to help Syria to reach an end of the crisis. Therefore, we are committed with the United Nations. You know that we participated with you 56 times in examining the OCHA reports, the Organization Office for Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs. 56 times. These are reports from OCHA, the United Nations humanitarian body. So once again, this attests to our cooperation with the United Nations. We cooperate with all the United Nations bodies in Damascus and 28 international NGOs as well. We have also participated in the Astana process, which had positive outcomes, as you know. We cooperate with the Organization of the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, as you know, and have participated in dozens of meetings on that topic. Therefore, there is no reason to doubt the cooperation of my government with the United Nations. I should no longer like to hear this being said in these important meetings. President, this meeting is being held to hear the briefing from the Special Envoy in Syria, and it is happening 2 days after the anniversary of the creation of our organization. We are proud to have been one of the founding members and signatory members of the Charter. As I have just said, the Charter enshrines the principles of independence, sovereignty, and refusal of the crimes of aggression and interference in internal state affairs, and respect for territorial integrity of states. 70 years after the creation of our organization and the fact that these noble values were enshrined in the Charter, it is shameful for them to be swept aside and ignored by states, including some permanent members of the Council. Very swiftly, some Western countries did indeed violate the Charter. Before the ink it was even written with was dry. An unprecedented terrorist war was waged against my country, a 7-year war, which has seen the creation of a military base to protect and train terrorists from the four corners of the globe. We were called the moderate opposition, the armed opposition. The plans and projects of the enemies of Syria are harmful and poisonous, as a snake's venom would be, but in the face of the resilience and determination of our people, they will become as fragile as a spider's web. I regret that the statement by the Special Envoy today did not refer in any way to terrorism and to the bombings carried out by the so-called coalition, which is illegitimate and directed by the United States of America, of Syrian towns and villages for the 69th time. 69 military raids carried out by coalition planes, which have led to thousands of martyrs and destroyed my country's infrastructure. The Special Envoy did not see that. Whilst in Geneva, I always started meetings by recalling this, by recalling the need to make a statement condemning these military operations against Syrian civilians, wherever these happened. President, once again, the so-called coalition, the illegitimate coalition led by the United States of America on the 19th of October 2018, carried out an abject crime which caused dozens of civilian deaths, dozens of deaths. Coalition planes targeted the villages of Sosa and Boubadran in the southwest, leading to 62 martyrs, most of them women and children, as well as numerous injuries, some of them critical. I informed the Council through 96 official communications of the abject crimes committed by the illegitimate coalition against Syrian civilians. I demonstrated that the coalition had targeted everything except armed terrorist groups. It is as though our interlocutors, as the poet said, if my interlocutors were alive, my voice would have reached them. Some members of the Council have been passive with regard to these crimes, and the Special Envoy has followed in their wake and did not refer to them. The report of the Secretariat, which claims to be credible, well, it's being far from being so, did not refer to these crimes. We therefore call for accountability and for those states who consider themselves to be defenders of the right to life, move away from this pernicious coalition today, not tomorrow. These states wept over Idlib and claimed to want to protect civilians, but did not wish to see when armed terrorist groups in Idlib targeted civilians in Aleppo with dozens of missiles guided by hatred on the 24th of October, resulting in dozens of injured people and deaths. We have heard no statement with regard to the attack on Aleppo from the Special Envoy or from anybody else within the Council. As you know, Idlib is a dearly held part of my country, and we are determined to recover Idlib. As I have already said, We allow for diplomatic and political work, but our right under the Charter and international law allows us to fully recover Idlib when we deem it necessary. The Syrian Arab Republic government will not allow Idlib to become another case like Tora Bora. We will not allow that. There can be no other Tora Bora terrorist groups as in Idlib. This has already been fully decided upon. President, based on our respect for the role of the United Nations in facilitating intra-Syrian dialogue, the Vice Prime Minister and Foreign Minister for Syria and the diaspora on the 24th of October met the Special Envoy in Damascus. During that meeting, the efforts deployed for moving ahead with the political process to resolve the crisis in Syria were discussed, as were ideas regarding the political process and the committee discussing the constitution. This was discussed between the Minister and the Secretary General Antonio Guterres in New York on the margins of the work of the 73rd General Assembly of the United Nations. My country is firmly convinced of the importance of the United Nations and its charter, as were the Founding Fathers. This is a role based upon the strength of law and not upon the arrogance of strength or force, a role which acts in full respect of states' sovereignty and non-interference in their internal affairs. A town for terrorist camp must not be established where terrorists could spread and disseminate. And Tanf is part of Syrian territory, as you know. This is a violation of the Charter. Upon that basis, the Syrian government has committed positively and openly to the Geneva negotiations and discussions and transparently allowed for meetings with the Special Envoy since he has been working as intra-Syrian facilitator for the last 4 years. My country continues to wish for the success of this mission because this is in the interest of the Syrian people, as attested to by the Syrian government in having discussions with Mr. de Mistura's predecessors, Kofi Annan and Ahmad al-Brahimi. My country has fully committed to the Astana process and dealt positively with the results of the National Syrian Dialogue in Sochi. My country continues to wish to preserve the results achieved regarding the creation of a committee to discuss the constitution. The special envoy can be the facilitator of the work of this committee. My government was the first to submit a list of participants from the Syrian state to the special envoy and believes that the guarantor countries play an important role in full cooperation and coordination with the Syrian government with regard to the creation of the committee, its mandate, its working mechanisms, with the facilitation of the United Nations. You will note that we do not refuse to involve the United Nations in this. However, the role of the United Nations is one of a facilitator, to facilitate intra-Syrian dialogue. Rather than having guardianship over this dialogue, facilitation. The special envoy is responsible for facilitating dialogue, intra-Syrian dialogue. Finally, President, no one more than the Syrian government wishes to bring an end to this crisis, which has been ravaging my country for over 7 years. We bear the brunt of this terrorist war, essentially, this war which aimed to fragment the state, kill our people, and destroy our infrastructures. That, then, was the plan in making trying to make Syria into a failed state or a bandit state, a failed state. We have also been open to combating terrorism attempts in order to resolve the crisis by resolving its status and their involvement within this war by ensuring national reconciliation to stop the bloodbath and ensure that we have full control of the Syrian territory. We believe that the creation of a constitutional committee reflecting Syrian society and realizing its ambitions is a way of exiting the crisis. The Syrian state also believes that the meeting between the foreign minister and the Secretary General on the margins of the current session of the General Assembly and the consultations recently held with the Special Envoy in Damascus, we believe that these meetings are the beginnings of work which reflect our positive cooperation with the Special Envoy. We are convinced that coordination with the guarantors, Iran and Russia, for solutions should result in the implementation of a committee to discuss the constitution. We must work which can work harmoniously and realize the aspirations of the Syrian people. This all plays an important role in meeting our objectives. In particular, the Sochi Conference on Intra-Syrian Dialogue is the conference which lay behind the creation of a committee to discuss the constitution. This was the Sochi Conference which put forward that idea. It was not the Special Envoy or the Geneva meetings or the Astana meetings. The Syrians in Sochi decided upon the creation of this committee. We believe that defining artificial deadlines do not serve the desired solution and will not help us to realize our aspirations. Allow me to underscore, President, finally, that the Syrian government will deploy every effort to achieve the aspirations of the Syrian people and of our friends, our true friends, as well as all those who aspire to creating a world free of terrorism and to strengthening the values of the Charter and achieving stability and security in the region and across the world. We are willing to continue cooperation with the United Nations so as to reach the desired solution. I thank you, President. I thank the distinguished representative of the Syrian Arab Republic